Davey Boy Smith and the Dynamite Kid wrestled Jacques and Ramon Rougeau. Your impressions of them as tag team work?
Two good tag teams, both were very good. Dynamite and Davey were exceptionally good. The English style, and Jacques and Raymond were very good at the way they did it. And of course, them being brothers and trained by the same person and had the same as their father, they were very solid workers, very solid match.
Was there a Canadian clique?
No, there was
with Pat and the Rougeaus and
I don't
Renee,
know. I mean,
maybe,
you hear all that nonsense sometimes about there's a Canadian clique. It was Dino Bravo and he was French Canadian. It's the Rougeau, he's French Canadian. It's Pat, he's French Canadian. But you got to understand, there was a lot of talent that came out of Canada, across Canada, across the board. Maybe more from the French Canadian side than out west. But a lot of Canadian talent has been around the pro wrestling business forever.
Right. Second match, Bad News Brown versus Ken Patera. Ken's definitely kind of on the down.
Ken's probably, he had substituted a lot of matches, and I'd worked with Ken many, many times. Great guy, great performer, knew what was going on, wasn't happy. Right. Bad News knew what was going on. He wasn't happy. They were building Bad News a little bit. At that point in time, Ken was on the way out.
Rick Rude defeats the Junkyard Dog.
Dog was on his way out. He was in the downhill slide. Rude was a new guy coming in. Like I'd said before about other talent coming in. Rude, very talented. They had some plans for him. At that point, they wasn't sure really which direction they were going to go. I don't know if he was doing the stripper gimmick at that point.
Well, they were prepping. This was when him and Jake and then Cheryl was involved.
Right, getting ready for that.
Too, yeah.
Dog was probably gone shortly after that.
Ever a good idea to have your wife involved in?
I personally wouldn't do it. I
wouldn't.
I don't want my wife and kids around this business at all. If I could help it, it's not conducive to a good family relationship.
Powers of Pain beat Boris Zukov and Nikolai Volkov.
Powers, that was one of those things where let's probably see which one of these teams is going to get a better reaction. Everybody hated Nikolai and Boris, so that was a given that whoever worked with him was the easy match. I wasn't easy in the ring with Nikolai by any means, but it was an easy match for the fans.
An in-ring edition of the Brother Love Show takes place. What'd you think of that, of Bruce's gimmick?
I liked it. In a way, I liked it. The red face was like a little bit too much. I mean,
it's like Neidhart after being in the ring for 5 minutes.
They could have backed off the redness just a little bit, but I thought he did wonderful with those segments. He did it really well. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing about WWE and Vince and what he does. He leaves no stone unturned when it comes to telling me to slapping babies and wives and women and the girls barking like dogs and having a guy acting like a televangelist on a TV and having Slick as a pimp. And here was a guy that was a preacher at a church and they turned him into a pimp.
But it was suggested. He never said anything. Sixth match was the Ultimate Warrior going over the Intercontinental Champion, the Honky Tonk Man, in 27 seconds. Take us through that match, second by second.
I knew going out when I went through the curtain pretty much what I was going to say, and I had given Vince and them the cues of what I was going to say and how, and I don't care who it is, get me somebody out here to wrestle, it doesn't matter. I came here to wrestle, and it was to me, the verbiage was a perfect setup because Beefcake obviously is not going to be there. I needed someone. I didn't care who it was. I'd make an open challenge to anyone in the locker room. So by going out doing that, and then they hit his music, then a few seconds later, it's over.
What do you do before your
matches? In more
ways
ways than
are you calm before your matches?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
How about Warrior? Is he nice and meditative before
I don't, you could never tell because he hid his feelings except when he would hit you, so you knew he was excited about something, and you could feel this cold clamminess of sweat, and So obviously that's a nervousness. That was one thing that I'd been around long enough. My nerves had and I was pissed off about the whole situation anyway. I didn't care if they fired me that day, the day before, the day after. I didn't give a fuck, so I didn't have any nerves.
Does Warrior ask anything of you in the match, or he strictly dictated?
He strictly let me tell him exactly what we were going to do, how we were going to do it, and I let him interject and say how he could do it best, as far as, because I knew we had to have 2 or 3 little spots there, not just him run in and decapitate me.
Right.
I wanted it to be a little bit more than that, not for my sake, but for him to showcase that he was worthy of actually at least copping the fall on me.
Okay.
Instead of just running in and bam. Right. I don't think we would have gotten the reaction, but I set it up where, and we had gone over these in the prior matches with him, where I would attack, bing, 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 throw the punch, he'd block, hit me, throw the punch, block, hit me, then bing and boom and boom. And we had set everything up except we had done the flying tackle as a high spot during the course of these pre-matches, these warm-ups, where he would run and hit the ropes and hit me with the flying tackle. Simply because I did not like to be picked up and dropped behind a guy and lay on my stomach and not see a guy hit the ropes, jump in the air, and fall on my back.
Gotcha.
I wasn't comfortable with that. A guy, I didn't mind him picking me up and dropping me.
Right.
But if you're going to pick me up and drop me, I'm going to roll on my stomach so that I can see if your knees are going to hit me in my face or your elbows are going to hit me in my nuts, so I can at least protect myself. If I'm laying on my back, on my stomach, and I can't see anything, then I don't know what's coming and where. And so that's why I wasn't comfortable doing that finish with him. And if I had worked on it with him a little bit to feel comfortable, I probably would have done it that way that night. But this flying tackle that he gave, he was so straight up in the air and 6 foot up. It looked fabulous. It just looked good. And I had the spot set up. We had worked all these. The whole match had been worked out before, but not in the succession so that the people knew they've already done that before.
Right.
I had changed it around so that it confused the people. They had seen the flying tackle, but not as a finish.
Gotcha.
They had seen him run and hit the ropes and give me the clotheslines, but not to set up the finish. So all I did was switch a few things around that he was comfortable doing, that he knew how to do, and it would make him look good and not hurt me. I mean, physically hurt me. Right. I mean, physically.
Right.
Professionally, I was dead anyway because they beat me in 20 seconds.
I
was dead when I didn't do the Saturday night main event.
Right. When you go through the curtain, is anyone there to tell you did a good job? Vince?
After it was over?
Yeah.
There was such elation in the building. It was like one of the highest screams of joy from the fans that you could probably hear from any building. If you go back and listen to it, it was deafening. I mean, I was like talking to Jimmy and screaming and, finally we got it done. It worked, and we're coming back. And no, it was not very much. Vince was there, I think, and he just went, "Good job, perfect."
Does Warrior thank you?
Yeah.
Okay.
I went straight to an interview segment right after that with Monsoon in the back,
right,
where I said I'd been ripped off. He wasn't the person to be the Intercontinental Champion, and there was no contract signed, and this match wasn't valid, and none of that whatever the bullshit. I'm just trying to save something. I mean, the ship is...
You're throwing the deck chairs off the Titanic is what you're doing.
Yeah, I'm almost underwater.
After your match, Dino Bravo pins Don Morocco. They're both wearing baby blue, and I know what that means.
Don was out. He was gone. I think Don realizes now, and he's heard me do these interviews, and people's asking him about the baby blue. I think they put Valentine in baby blue shortly before they fired him, too. So
that's the way they do it, I guess, right?
And Dino's really wasn't baby blue yet. His was a off-colored blue that he wore, which was the kind of the color of the French Canadian flag.
Right.
So he could get away with it.
Okay, right.
But when they put Don in the baby blues, it was over.
Demolition with Jimmy Hart and Mr. Fuji beat Hart and Neidhart.
So there was a lot of changes going on. And with stuff like the Demolition winning against the Hart Foundation, you could see change in the air there. With Junkyard Dog losing to Ravishing Rick Rude, the changes were coming now. And they were rapidly coming during and after that pay-per-view. Yes.
Big Boss Man pins Coco Beware.
Birdman was... he wasn't figured in anymore.
Jake Roberts
Boss
pins
Man was
Hercules.
coming new.
We covered Jake and Hercules prior.
Yep.
And then the main event was Hogan and Savage beating DiBiase and Andre. Now, quick question. Because Randy's denied the title by you at back at the Saturday Night's Main Event, is his getting the title eventually because they couldn't give him the IC title?
Yes, and Ted had been promised
Right.
Hogan's belt.
And that's why
Ted
the $1 million
came in-
belt was created.
Ted came in knowing he was going to be world's champion. When he left Bill Watts, he knew he was going to be world's champion. And then this monkey wrench got thrown in. And then they created a $1 million belt that Ted had the same everything, main event matches, first class airfare, had someone tote his bags, limousine, suites in the hotel paid for, per diem paid for, everything paid. He had the same as Hogan, but the money was probably a little less.
Right.
Probably a lot less.
The jealousy angle, which would eventually split up Hogan and Savage with concerning Liz, kind of art imitating life with how a lot of the workers said Randy felt toward Elizabeth being in the locker room with other guys. True?
No, I don't think so. They had to position Randy and set this thing up for the tournament, and Hogan's leaving anyway, and soon after that, so it was not a, I don't think that ever came about. They might have been testing Randy with that, see how he'd feel. They'd already tested him a little bit with me pushing her down.
Right.
And, of course, George Steele picking her up and running away with her, and Randy getting very upset with George because he thought George was feeling her out. It's like, come on, give me a fucking break. Who cares?
After the show, where do you go out in New York? You just go back to the hotel in Jersey?
We head back over to Jersey. You take the ambulance out of the building, go back up to the Ramada, get the car, head back over to Elizabeth Diner, have dinner, go back to the room, and leave and go somewhere the next day. Start it all over again.
After SummerSlam, you get your next documented match I have is September 9th, 11 days. Do you remember what you did? Did you get a little time off?
We didn't have 11 days off.
Oh, I have here your next match was September.
Wish I'd had 11 days off.
It's fun.
I must have got a divorce during those 11 days. I sure as hell don't remember it.
All right, the aftermath. Do you remember what your payday was for that night?
It was a good payday.
Statute of limitations up. The IRS can't audit you after 3 years. Do you remember what your
Well,
payday
I've been
was?
audited a bunch of fucking times, so it don't matter. It was a good payday.
Did you make more than Warrior?
I don't know.
Yeah.
We never talked about it at all. We never talked about that. It was more than I expected because of WrestleMania 3 was so much less than I expected. It was fair, I suppose. I knew I was on the way out. Who knows? You know what? I looked at it as a gift toward the end of it now because I hung on long enough to get that.
Well, I was going to say.
I hung on long enough to get that one good check.
Was it a fair enough after 454 days of sellouts or thereabouts.
Well, when you look back, you always say, well, you know,
That
so
you
and
gave
so,
the
so and so,
company.
so and so got 60,000. Warriors stood them up because Hogan got 650,000 for SummerSlam or something a year before that or a year after that. When guys, you know, it's like, are you kidding me? Hogan's makes 600,000, and this is what I made. So it all comes with the territory. It all comes with. It is what it is. Some guys at WrestleMania 3 were, you know, they made 50,000, 80,000, 100,000, $200,000 probably. No one really ever talked about their money. Really.
What are you told is coming next by Vince?
After
Anything?
that,
Yeah.
there was nothing. I wasn't told anything until I did these return matches with Warrior.
Right.
And then I was in the cafeteria one day and I see Jimmy Snuka come in the lunchroom at one of the buildings, and I went over to Vince and I said, you know, I wouldn't mind having a little run with Jimmy, and I'll get him over. And he said, really? I said, yeah. And then we started.
Rhythm and Blues happens not too long after this, right?
Well, see, I knew I was finished. They're going to job me out with anybody, mid card, lower card. The money was gone. Right. I mean, I know what mid card, Madison Square Garden sold out. You're in a mid card match, you can make $600 fucking dollars, not 6,000, like you'd make with someone, or 8,000. You're gonna make 600, 700. And now you're in the sea towns. You're in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You're in Lowell, Massachusetts. You're in Des Moines, Iowa. I mean, you're making $1,500. You're making $750 in Scranton. The money it dries up fast. And so I knew that if I could get in and do the thing with Jimmy Snuka, they maybe had some plans. My money would go up. So I maintained a little bit of a steady income with Jimmy because we weren't feature matches by any means. But then we worked up a month or so later to feature matches in those small towns. And those small towns would pay $2,000, $2,500 on top, which wasn't bad. It wasn't $5,000, but it was steady money. And I knew they were getting Jimmy ready for Mr. Perfect.
Right. An interesting epilogue.
And
to
after
this.
Jimmy Snuka, I didn't know where I was going. I got over to TV, and then no. Then it was Rhythm and Blues.
Right.
Yeah.
But an interesting epilogue to this story is that you and Warrior meet one more time, July of 1995 in Las Vegas. Remember this? It was a show called National Wrestling Conference.
Independent promoter.
Yeah. The Ultimate Return at the Silver Nugget Hotel and Casino. Did the match go a little longer?
Yeah, by then he had worked with Hogan and yes, he had worked with Hogan. He had worked with a lot of different guys, Dino Bravo and several other. Rick Roode had the best matches I've ever seen with a guy. Rick Roode had fabulous matches with that guy. Hogan had a good match with him. Mind you, they had to go over it a lot and practice it, but Hogan wanted it to be right and be good, and that's what they did. They were able to do that. I never had the opportunity to go and take a month and just go down to Tampa and work out and practice with someone. But the Warrior match in Las Vegas, it didn't go as long as you would expect because he was pissed off at the promoter about something. He didn't want to be there. He barely talked to me. We went out, did something silly nonsense, and got out of it and was done. And so it was not even memorable at all. I remember being in Las Vegas at that particular Silver Nugget, and that's about it.
You look back at that SummerSlam as a highlight. I know it is the end of something that didn't end well because of the whole Savage thing.
Well, we all have to give up something. We all have to lose somewhere down the line. It's not about never ever losing. It's not like you can't beat me in Canada. Maybe I should have told Vince that.
Can't beat me in New York.
You can't beat me. I'm not losing in New York. Saturday night main event was in Hershey. I'm not losing in Hershey, fucking Pennsylvania. So I mean, none of that had anything to do. It was all business. But
right.
Looking back, I've always said this. I accomplished what needed to be accomplished. I got him over right away he was an automatic star. Right away. Mm-hmm. It was good for the company because they needed somebody, and they needed somebody quick and fast to be over right away. And he was over right away. So it helped the company. It didn't hurt me to lose to the Warrior then, at that point in time, because it was done the right way. It was done the way I wanted to do it. And I was happy doing it that way. Could somebody have given me a different or a better way to do it? No one came up to me and told me, because they had given me the freedom to do it. And so when you have the freedom to do it your way, you chose it. It's like taking a bad booking. You booked it. You know, hey, but in hindsight, no. It was a good run. I enjoyed the run up until all the Saturday Night Main Event stuff came along, and then I didn't enjoy the run anymore. I enjoyed being with Jimmy Snuka. I enjoyed doing the return. I actually enjoyed doing the return matches with the Warrior. I enjoyed it because it gave me a chance then to be creative again, and not be in this laborious, continue to do the same match every night that Randy and I did for 6 months,
right.
Or do the same match that I was doing with someone else for 3 months straight in a row. With the Warrior, then after he won the belt and I had return matches, then I started building things into to match with him. I started being creative with him and doing things that helped, ultimately it helped me with the crowd, because it didn't make me just a job guy that had been beaten in 20 seconds.
Right.
I was able to put together things during the match and give them the finish that they sent down from the office that obviously popped the crowd and meant something. The rhythm and blues thing came along, whole new story. You'd have to set us down one day and go through that. It's interesting how it happened. It's interesting how it dissipated and went away.
Maybe we'll do that again.
Yes.
And I hope you get to Ebersol's house for a dinner. He owes you one, you know. Good seeing you again, my friend.
Thanks, Sean. I've enjoyed it.
Be well. Thanks
Memory
for watching.
lane is really something. Whew.